Hello you guys, what is going on? We just got the huge patch for Diablo 4 and there's a ton of crazy notes in here. There's a ton of buffs and a ton of different individual tweaks that they've made to the game. You should know all of these because more than likely they're going to affect your build and your gameplay. So basically I'll go ahead and pull up a list here of a lot of the notes that they have, and we're going to go over a lot of these patch notes because there are a ton of different notes here for a lot of different things. So as you can see here, gameplay fixes, they fixed a lot of different individual gameplay issues. If these apply to you, by all means read over those. I'm not going to go over every single one. They also fixed other bugs with dungeons, events, and activities, but that's not the good stuff we're wanting. Local co-op fixes, quest fixes, and UI fixes. One great thing, they fixed an issue where a party's members' HP bar would be 0 if they left the vicinity. I'm sick and tired of seeing that, so that's good. And then overall, a bunch of just general UI fixes here that are probably pretty good. So now everything that we care about, we're going to go over the gameplay adjustments for Diablo 4 because these are all the big changes that we need to know. So here we go with the big changes. So experience rewards. They significantly buffed the experience awarded for completing nightmare dungeons. So finally we're going to be able to do nightmare dungeons and get a ton of XP compared to the regular dungeon counterpart. Now, I don't know how much that truly affects overall the nightmare dungeon XP, but if they significantly increased it, I imagine this is probably going to be the meta here on out, especially when trying to level your glyphs at the same time, etc., and just overall better loot drops. They significantly increased the experience gain from killing monsters in nightmare dungeons as well, so you get increased completing nightmare dungeon XP and killing monsters XP. So now nightmare dungeons are totally going to be worth it to do instead of just running regular dungeons. Helltide chests now provide substantially more bonus experience, so we get more experience for Helltide chests. That's good because we are basically forced to do them in order to upgrade our equipment. Significantly increased rewarded experience from completing individual whispers across the board. So we get more XP from the tree of whispers, which is okay, but later on in the end game, not many people really do that unless it's just a bonus and they already have the stuff to turn one in. And they fixed an issue where no experience is awarded for completing the holdout style event that can occur after finishing dungeon objectives, which I personally haven't seen, but I mean, that's good that they fixed it. It's overall great because they buff nightmare dungeon XP overall. So that should hopefully make leveling your character much easier. That's the exact kind of buff that we want. Some of the general changes, the Helltide roaming bosses will now consistently drop higher quality loot. That's amazing because if you haven't fought a Helltide boss yet, they have like 50 million bars of health and they take forever to defeat. And then once you defeat them, they drop you like a regular rare. So that's pretty disappointing. So we'll keep an eye on that. Hopefully that will be good loot that will actually drop, and maybe we'll get some unique drops from Helltide roaming bosses, which would be nice. So another big one, players can now teleport to their nightmare dungeon directly through the map. So now you can go activate a sigil, go straight to the nightmare dungeon, and not have to do all that running around over and over and over again. And then you can port from dungeon to dungeon back to back, so you don't ever have to really leave a dungeon, go somewhere, activate a sigil, etc. So that's good. That'll save us a bunch of time running all over the place. That is the exact change they promised, the exact change we wanted, and that's what we got. So that's very positive. They also have a note here. We're currently working on increasing the monster and elite density of endgame content and plan to introduce this change in early of Season 1. So now we can expect early in Season 1 for there to be increasing monster and elite density, which again is just what we wanted. So it seems like they're listening and taking the feedback, and we're getting positive changes that we all kind of wanted. So now come the balance changes. So this is what I'm a little scared of, and before I read through these, so the Barbarian, not a bunch of immediate changes. So you can see buffs here for the Barbarian for Fury Generation, base damage for a lot of these skills, Fortify, base damage increases. So the big things I want to see here are Iron Skin. Enhanced Iron Skin's barrier increase from 10% to 20% of max life. That's a positive buff for the Barb. Call of the Ancients bonus attack speed, got a buff. That's perfect. Iron Maelstrom, the abilities and the damage increases. Pretty big buff here for that. So it looks like overall so far they're pretty decent buffs. Legendary aspects. The below includes changes to flat damage legendary aspects. These effects scale with item power. For example, 820 item power increases from blah 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 to blah blah blah. So it seems like they've increased the flat damage for legendary aspects for a lot of these different things, and it seems like they've slightly buffed every one of those for the Barbarian. So for the Barbarian, that's great. Overkill, we get another buff. So it seems like these are all pretty much buffs. No whirlwind buffs or Hammer of the Ancient buffs, or vice versa nerfs for that matter. And additionally, another big change is the weekly bonus caches from world bosses no longer have a level requirement for opening them. So every time you get a weekly cache from a world boss, now they will no longer have a level requirement versus getting one that's level 80 or 90, and then you just can't ever open it. So that's definitely something they needed to fix, and hopefully they fixed it. I'll take their word for it until I see for myself. So looking at these immediate stats here for the Druid, skills like Claw, these seem to be buffed in a bunch of different areas. Lightning Storm is buffed. Wolves, the cooldown is buffed, and the lucky hit chance is buffed pretty dramatically. Hurricane got a buff, so base damage increased from 97.5 to 134%. That's a pretty solid buff there in terms of damage jump. And again, it seems like they've buffed the legendary aspects as well for the Druid. So again, Barb got a buff, Druid got buffs. Let's see, Necromancer, seems like the cooldowns are reduced, and there are also some additional changes to like the damage numbers, 25 to 27%, 8 to 9 in terms of generation. So it seems like Necromancer is buffed as well. Cooldown reductions for the Necro. And I don't play Necro, so I don't necessarily know all of these skills, but it seems like every single one of them in terms of base damage, cooldown, and stuff like that is buffed. So that is very solid. As well, it seems like the passives are buffed as well. And then we come down here to Rogue, and there's just nothing there because they just didn't do anything with the Rogue, and I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm perfectly fine with that. So overall, it seems like we got some pretty solid balance changes here. We got the XP boost from Nightmare Dungeons, overall, monsters, and completion. We got Helltide chests that give more XP. We got Helltide roaming bosses that give higher quality loot. We get weekly bonus caches. Those are now fixed, and players can teleport directly to Nightmare Dungeons. So overall, the XP boost for Nightmare Dungeons was a big part of this patch and a big part of this change, and I'm glad it's finally here because that really incentivizes us to do more Nightmare Dungeons, where we ultimately get better loot anyways than running regular dungeons. It seems like I mentioned, no crazy change to a bunch of the primary skills, but overall, kind of the secondary skills and stuff for the Barbarian, for the Druid, and for the Necromancer all got buffed at least a little bit in some areas. In some areas, they got buffed pretty decently. So Barb, Necro, and Druid buffs along with all this stuff. We still don't seem to have adjusted drop rates specifically in here. And I think that's one thing. Hopefully when we get into season 1, those will be adjusted a little bit, but we still don't have buffed drop rates for the rare uniques because we're still not able to find them. Hopefully that will be in a later patch once that becomes kind of a bigger issue than it is. But hopefully they continue to fix these, marking stuff as junk when you're in your inventory or you're in your stash or stuff like this. So, and I think overall this is a very positive patch for the game. Let me know what you think in the comments. Think if this was good or if this was bad. Like the video if you haven't already, and check out one of these Diablo 4 videos on the left or the right. That being said, you guys go have fun. Peace.